Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Where Work Meets Life. I'm Dr. Laura, and today I'm going to speak about navigating fear and uncertainty in today's tricky world. I'm going to speak from the heart about my own musings on spirituality and mental health, and why I feel spirituality is one of the keys to dealing with the mental health challenges we face as human beings in this very difficult and tricky, but also beautiful world. So that's what we're going to speak about today. Now, I want to talk first with you about the situation that we're in the world. We're facing challenges from all directions. I would argue that the world has always been a tricky place. When we think back to World War I, World War II, when we think back to the medieval times, the Dark Ages, the plagues, everything that humanity has been through, it's not been a cakewalk. There's been lots of turbulence. And today is no exception. We're in turbulent times. Even though as a society we have more physically than we've ever had, I would say there's a void for a lot of people when it comes to meaning, purpose, when it comes to hope and love versus fear and uncertainty. So the challenges in the world are vast, and we are bombarded with media about what's going on with wars, with politics, with a great polarization we're facing where we can barely have a conversation with someone on the other side of a continuum. And I've often thought about going into politics, but I think I would be too sensitive. As an empath, I think my skin would not be thick enough. I would take it so personally. I would shed so many tears in politics, but I really admire people that have the courage to go into politics and to stand up for beliefs and what's needed in this world. But this volatility, this uncertainty, this polarization is very difficult on us. It brings about a state of constant uncertainty and fear. On top of that, in the world of workplaces, which I specialize in, we're seeing constant change. Changes every day, the fast pace, the huge workloads. And then on top of that, we have issues like toxic bosses, which I'm tackling through my research and my book that's coming out January 13th, 2026. And then we have the essentially mental health crisis that's going on with so many people struggling, and that will include some of our friends, our loved ones, and we see people suffering around us. And yes, it is a tricky world, but it's also a beautiful world. And these challenges coming from all directions will continue. Challenges, curveballs are there to help us grow and teach us, and we can choose to grow and become stronger from the challenges and walk through them one foot ahead of the other, or we can choose to be brought down to our knees and live in a state of constant anxiety and fear. So anxiety and fear, let's talk about that. Let's talk about mental health. So I spoke a lot about mental health. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I ended up specializing in careers and organizations because I thought that was kind of a more clear-cut way to go. And then I realized as I entered my 30s and 40s that it's intertwined. Mental health and workplaces go hand in hand. So during the pandemic, I found myself speaking a lot about mental health and burnout. And the whole thinking was, once this pandemic is behind us and in the rearview mirror, we will be able to live better, mentally healthy lives. Not true. Mental health rates have gone up since the pandemic in a lot of countries. Mental health is very much a crisis and a pandemic of its own. And mental health is tricky. It's really tricky because it lives inside of our brains and our emotions. So mind and emotion. And I'm going to tell you some of the main types of mental health challenges. The biggest one is anxiety. And anxiety, another word for it, is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the future, fear of what's going to happen to me, fear of losing everything. And a close cousin to anxiety is depression. And when anxiety hits, depression tends to follow if the anxiety is allowed to run amok in our lives. And anxiety can keep us up at night. It's like having a monkey in our brain. We cannot calm it down, and our thoughts begin to loop. So I'll have one negative thought, such as, this economy sucks, Laura, and your business is going to continue to be hit by the economy, and you're never going to be able to get out of it in the near future, and it's going to be rocky and it's going to be hard. And then I have this negative thought, and then another negative thought, and then another negative thought. And whoa, what if I can't afford my lease? Another negative thought. And what happens is these thoughts cycle, and it can make us feel down. It makes me feel down, and I get sad. And depression can lock in. Depression is a feeling of hopelessness, sadness. You don't feel hope about the future. You're not happy in the present. You have a low mood. And that's not the official definition in the DSM where we can diagnose clinical depression. I'm just talking more high level here. And if you are feeling these thoughts of hopelessness and sadness, please seek help. There is so much excellent help out there, whether it's your medical doctor, a therapist, other types of healers. I just really encourage you to talk to professionals. Other types of mental health issues that are out there: PTSD, past trauma, and traumas can be little t traumas, death by 1,000 paper cuts, where you suffer from microaggressions, you suffer from, incidents that happen to you and hurt you. They hurt your soul, they hurt your heart, and you never healed from them. And then they stick within you. They stick in your tissues. The issues are in your tissues. I love that saying. And if we don't release those issues from childhood, from our teenage years, from family of origin, even from maybe being in a marriage that's been rocky, whatever it is, if we're not releasing those traumas, we are holding on to negativity and fear, which can manifest itself in mental health challenges. And then other types of challenges can be brain injury related. So we can have a brain injury that impacts our mental health. We can have substance abuse. So, I'm going to start using cannabis more regularly to feel better, to calm down, because things are so tricky. And then I'm going to have a few drinks to calm down. And then one thing leads to another, and we find ourselves relying on substances. And very, very much, these can cause mental health issues. Addiction is a mental health issue at its core. And it really brings us down. It self-medicates temporarily, and then it brings us down to a dark, sad place. So, we are all on a mental health continuum. It ranges from feeling healthy and good about life, healthy. I've got this. Laura, I've got this. I can handle today. I can handle this week. And then we get into reacting. So healthy and then reacting. And reacting is where we start to be triggered and we start to have a shorter fuse. And for me, if I'm reacting, my sleep starts to suffer. I'll wake up in the night and my brain won't shut up. And then injured. So when we go from reacting to injured, we are truly not feeling well. We are just going through the emotions. This is where anxiety has set in, and it's there by your side. Depression has potentially set in. It's there. You're feeling low daily. It's as if you've put on glasses and there's a darker view of the world that you have. And then illness, when you get to illness from injured, you're not getting out of bed easily. You are not getting one foot ahead of the other. And we can talk about, exercising and getting fresh air. And no, you don't feel like doing any of that. And when you're ill, you're not able to work. So when you're ill, you're on a medical health leave. You are very sick. So we don't want you to get ill. That is a brutal place to be. And we are all susceptible to becoming that in this tricky world. And that's why today I wanted to talk to you about spirituality as an important angle for the mental health challenges we are facing. And I don't usually talk about spirituality on the podcast. Here and there I do, and I plan to more because I feel it's one of the key ways to address this hopelessness, this fear that we're in, and it's really helped me. So when something helps me, I like to share it with you, and you can decide whether this isn't for you. I definitely don't want to come across as judging or, against religion, organized religion in any way. And in fact, organized religion can offer a sense of community and rituals and belonging to something. And it can definitely be a spiritual place for people. It can also be a place of fear. So it depends on the doctrines. It depends on whether the religion has been a choice for you that you've been drawn to, or whether it's been forced upon you and you feel trapped with it. I mean, I really feel that every religion can offer real benefits as well as drawbacks depending on the person and the situation and who the leader is of that church or institution. So I'm not against organized religion, but at the same time, I can see that it may or may not be the full answer for this mental health crisis. And religion, for me, growing up Catholic with a mother who suffered from anxiety. My mom, there's no doubt about it. She had extreme anxiety. She had mental health challenges. And she used religion to self-medicate. And there was lots of repetitious prayer. There was the family rosary. And that's a lot of prayers in a row. And your mind kind of goes into a repetitious cycle of repeating prayers and memorizing them. And it actually can help calm the mind, much like meditation in a way. However, with my mother, she got more and more into the extreme side of Catholicism. And every religion can have its extreme side. We know that. There's the mainstream, and then there's the extremists in any faith. And in Catholicism, that extremity fits with a Society of Opus Dei, for example. So we used to receive their mail growing up. My mother was part of almost a little cult group that operated from a place of fear and saying prayers to get time off your stay in purgatory. So the belief was, if you died, most people don't go to heaven right off the skip because we've done crappy things in our lives. We go to purgatory, and purgatory could be weeks, months, or years. And as a little girl, I remember being really curious about this. And I remember saying, okay, is it like more painful? Like, is it painful? Is there fire there like there is in hell? And my mother said, yeah, it's painful. You're suffering for all of your sins. But if you say these prayers, it can take time off your stay. Literally, these cards, I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny for a little girl. The stay would be, you get 30 days off purgatory for saying this prayer. So I would, be given these prayer cards and say these prayers. And there was this thing called a scapular medal that was a black cloth, necklace you would wear. And I remember my mother saying, if you're wearing this when you die, you definitely don't go to hell. And I was terrified to have that thing off of me. I was terrified. So I had to wear it at night. I had to wear it under my clothing. And I just don't agree with that. I think that was very scary for a little girl, scary for growing up in fear. And that's not the purpose of spirituality. Spirituality is about your connection to the divine, your connection to the universe, having a sense of purpose, living with unconditional love rather than fear. So again, I grew up with the fear of extreme organized religion, and that wasn't good. And I was able to release that as time went on and see it for what it was and really feel for my mother and her suffering. But I really want to differentiate spirituality and religion. So I believe you can be part of a religion and be spiritual, or you can have one or the other. You can be part of a religion and going through the motions and not spiritual. Or you can be spiritual, which is more focusing on your inner connection, your connection to the universe, the belief that there's something greater than us at play, and we're working towards rising in our consciousness and enlightenment, where we unconditionally love and we're detached from any one outcome. And I mean, I could go on, but those are some of my musings about spirituality. It's about personal growth. Spirituality is not you are spiritual or you're not. It's a growth journey, and it involves learning that there's something beyond the material world. And, as you go along, teachers will come into your life, books will come into your life, and you'll start to gravitate towards what resonates, and you'll take pause and figure out, what is it that speaks to me here? And what is it that just sounds like total flaky and woo-woo? And I used to think a lot of it was woo-woo as I was doing my doctorate and my evidence-based training in psychology, which very much has its place in my life, 100%. But also, what has its place in my life is a deep sense of spirituality, spiritual growth, and being someone who wants to bring light and be a light worker to others. And what that means is I want to instill a sense of hope. I want to help people find unconditional love, find joy in their hearts, find peace in themselves, and not be living in this constant fear about this tricky world around them and what they cannot control. Because that is a path towards endless suffering. Endless suffering. And I know there was this talk of purgatory growing up that I went through, but you can have purgatory here on earth. And purgatory is when you're in a mentally unwell state and you are going through days with looping thoughts and negativity and a lack of hope, purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. And I'm really actually quite happy that I have Canada Career Counseling, where we can help people find purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. So, I just want to say that during tough times, especially, spiritual beliefs are super important. And there's a strong sense of, if you have a sense of meaning, you have lower rates of depression and improved mental resilience. So there are linkages. I mean, the whole spiritual field is just starting to come to the fore of being studied more, talked about more. In workplaces, we tend to not talk about it, but that's going to change. I think over the next couple of years, that is going to start to shift and change. Not everywhere, but in certain places, in certain pockets. And I really feel like there'll be people like you listening to this episode, hopefully, and finding that it resonates. And there'll be some that just aren't ready to hear it. And you might say, Dr. Laura's gone a little bit woo-woo. And that's okay, right? I would have thought the same thing. Even 7 years ago, I would have thought the same thing. In 2019, I started a spiritual evolution, and ever since, it's been a going concern and growth area for me. But yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I wanted to be authentic about it. And I don't know everything. I'm learning. Right now, I'm reading The Untethered Soul. Beautiful, beautiful book. That one was highly recommended. I have read The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. That one is also a good one to learn about. The only thing you can control is the now, and the more that you can live in the now and get out of the past, get out of the regret and rumination about the past, and get out of the fear of the future. We have zero control over the future. Zero. So let's just focus on the now. So The Power of Now and Untethered Soul are two that have helped me and that I would recommend. The Teachings of Deepak Chopra, definitely recommend those as well. And I have others, but those are just a few to get you going if you say, hey, where should I start? Or what would you recommend? Those would be some starting points. So I'm going to, in the YouTube video of this, I'm going to get Steve to put up this slide on the focus on what you can control. So there's two columns here. So for those of you listening, that's okay. This is simple. There's two columns. One says you can control, and the other says you can't control. So I want you, as part of working on your mental health and resilience, to focus every day on what you can control in this tricky and troubled world. You can control practicing gratitude. Gratitude is so powerful. And even if you can barely find anything to be grateful for, there's always something. I'm grateful that I got out of bed and I live in a heated home and I don't have to freeze my tail off. That is something to be grateful for. I'm grateful that I open my eyes and I can see, and some people are blind and cannot. That's something to be grateful for. So I want you to practice gratitude. I want you to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness is taking deep breaths, grounding yourself. It can include meditation, or it can include just pausing for a minute and breathing deeply and grounding. Mindfulness is getting you back into the moment versus being scattered all over the place in the past and in the future and in a fear state. Exercise. So you can control exercise, and it can just be a walk around your street. It does not have to be something intense. Exercise is putting one foot in front of the other and moving. You can control eating well, drinking less or avoiding alcohol, and eating well. What you put into your mouth is ultimately up to you, and that is something to really be aware of if you are trying to be well and be mentally healthy. Your reaction to curveballs. So life is full of curveballs. You're going to get hit with them. There's no doubt about it. At work, in life, in family, in loss, in illness. But it's how you react to the curveball. You can control how you react, how you engage with and deal with and get through it and walk through the curveball. You can choose to be a martyr and say, I'm suffering, this is happening to me, this is not fair. Yeah, life is not fair. However, you can also choose to say, what can I learn from this? And how can I help others who may be going through this in the future? And how can I get through this as best I possibly can? So that would be, dealing with curveballs in the driver's seat of dealing with the curveball. And then connecting with others. You can control reaching out to an old friend, checking in with a friend, thanking someone for being there for you in your life. And even though you haven't been in touch in 5 years, hey, thank you for being in my life when you were. I'm thinking of you. I'm hoping you're doing well. And then doing activities you enjoy, even the little things. I really enjoy taking an Epsom salt bath with a candle in it. Those little things can go a long way, and you can control those things. What you can't control, and where too many of us spend time talking about, thinking about, ruminating about, are political and economic outcomes. The state of the economy, which political party is in power, polarity, all of these things we cannot control. It is happening. It's happening in our world. There's lots of polarity and there's economic uncertainty that will be there. We can't control it. We can't control natural disasters like the horrible fires that have plagued some dear friends of mine, the floods that have plagued many people. The disasters in the world are tough. We can't control when they're going to happen. But we can control how we react to them. We can't control accidents and emergencies. Yeah, we can decrease the chances of an accident, but we can't control accidents and emergencies. They happen when they happen. And then life and work curveballs. Suddenly you walk in, you're called to your boss's office, HR's there, you're laid off. We've seen so many people at Canada Career Counseling go through this, and we've helped them to get back on their feet with courage, with positivity, with hope. But that is a brutal situation that you can't control, but you can control what you do next and how you walk through it. And finally, you can't control the past. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but some people really get stuck in the past with regrets, with wishing things had gone differently, or with guilt of how they acted or did not act in a certain situation. But get out of there, because the past is the past. It's history. Yesterday is history. And tomorrow is a mystery, so you cannot control the future either. You can only focus on today and the now, and putting one foot ahead of the other and focusing on you and how you can be the best human being that you can be, taking care of your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and social health. So again, I'll repeat that: physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual health. And yeah, for you introverts out there, social health is still important, but it looks different. So it may be that deep one-on-one connection versus going out into a big group networking event or party. You may just find that that's a bit draining for you. So again, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but spirituality, however that may look for you, is something I recommend to explore. I recommend that it becomes one of the arms of your mental health and mental well-being and resilience journey. And I hope this is helpful. I'm happy to connect with you, and I'd love to hear what you think of this episode. And if you have other ideas and resources and things that have helped you, please share in my community. And I truly hope you stay well and grounded. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Where Work Meets Life. If you found this content valuable, please rate and review the episode and share with others who may benefit. Visit me on my website at drlaura.live and sign up for my monthly e-newsletter full of tips and resources. I'm also a passionate keynote speaker and would be delighted to speak with you on your speaking needs. Stay well.